All right, so this one is we're talking about slavery and the Civil War vis-a-vis Catholics here in America at the time. Let's touch on the topic of slavery first. This has something of a complicated, convoluted presence in the history of the church. There is, on the one hand, and it's easy for us here in the 21st century to look back and say, oh, how can everybody have slaves? Which is the correct position, obviously, the most moral position. However, the world had accepted the reality of slavery of the conquered. That's just what it was in the day. I'm not arguing for it. I'm not saying it's correct. I'm saying that's what it was, which is why even St. Paul doesn't say, free the slaves. There are plenty of slaves in the Roman Empire. What he does is, as opposed to going after the institution of slavery, is to really go after the relationship of the master to the slave. And he kind of sets what is essentially a new paradigm. The idea that you should treat your slave or slaves as human beings. That alone is an entirely new, mind-blowing thing to his audience. Now, to us, it doesn't seem like that. It's like, well, he should say, get rid of the slaves. This is 2,000 years ago in a world that was organized completely differently, that had completely different underlying philosophies than Christianity. So, even our Lord didn't say, get rid of the slaves. End slavery as an institution. As a matter of fact, in Jewish law, if you owed somebody money and you were unable to pay it, your way to pay it was to enslave yourself to that person for some temporary amount of time until what would be considered the debt, whatever it was you owed, paid off by your indenturedness. Because actually, what else would you give besides your labor if you don't have any money? When you put that into the great culture mixes of the world, that if you were conquered, if you were a conquered empire, this is all that's going on back then, one empire attacking another one, Persians, Babylonians, Assyrians, the Hittites, the Romans, the Greeks, Egyptians. Every time you did this, part of the deal was you got the people who survived became your slaves. And they built your pyramids and your aqueducts and your monuments and all that sort of thing. That's the way the world worked then. Over here in the Americas, the exact same thing. When these various Native American tribes or tribes native to the Americas, north, south, everything, they would conquer and enslave the population of the conquered. So this was just sort of common fare. It was what the reality was. And when you introduce Christianity into the world, the very beginnings of it with St. Paul, he says, hey, the way that we view human beings as chattel, we shouldn't do that. Now, I can't overthrow the system, but I can certainly speak to you, the follower of Christ, who is a master of a slave.